record is so good.
Crazy.
It sounds like everything is one thing except for her. Is it running all through a speaker? It's muffled, it's fuzzy, it's old, it's distorted. How is that arranged?
I could answer that.
Okay.
I'd have to kill him. There is a plugin we use very effectively that shall go unnamed so that you at home can't imitate this record. It basically does what you're hearing.
Not telling people what you do is someone snitch on the plugin VST. I just want to screw the old guy. Give us the plug. I absolutely. I 100% need to know. Why not share the plugin? Anybody know what I get.
So that was Tony Berg, one of Phoebe's producers, and that clip shows you just how important what we're about to do is. Phoebe Bridgers is one of, if not the most popular indie artists in the world right now. Everyone is trying to emulate her songwriting, and just as importantly, everyone is trying to emulate her production style. But in-demand producers and audio engineers like to keep their sound a secret. They want to be difficult to emulate. And that's fair enough, I completely understand why. Producers need to protect their sound, but my mission is to arm the bedroom producer with as many techniques and tools as possible in order to recreate what they did in a $10 million studio in your bedroom. So let's try and spoil their secrets. Today I'll be digging up as much media and as much evidence as I can possibly find to figure out what tools and what techniques were used to record a garden song. Then emulating those techniques with the tools that I have available to me and that you might have available to you. First, let's line up the suspects, the main characters in terms of the production of this album. So we have Phoebe Bridgers, the songwriter and the artist, obviously. We have Tony Berg, the co-producer. You should see his credits list, by the way, it's insane. Ethan Gruska is also the co-producer, and then we have Harrison Whitford, who is the guitarist. So let's break down this record by analyzing media from each one of these individuals.
Okay, so I want to show you a quick sneak peek of something. What you're looking at is a few different drafts of the rough mixes of this project. The first one. Second one. Someday I'm gonna live. And then we added our own vocalist over top of it. In your house up on the hill. And that is as much of a sneak peek as I'm willing to give right now. How many of you use WeTransfer or Dropbox in order to ship your audio project forward? Well, this whole organizational scheme that you're looking at on the screen right now, where we have real-time A/Bing, this is like a WeTransfer or Dropbox meant specifically for a musician. And this is our sponsor, Samply. So not only can you share downloadable links with clients, you can leave comments on the timeline. You can span these comments across real-time, lossless audio files, and you can A/B between them directly, and it will automatically put these in chronological order. Samply also has a bunch of really cool tools built into the interface. You can match the loudness of different mixes, so you can actually A/B without loudness bias. In this interface, you have built-in storage. So you can see I have the project file here ready to download. The links that you send are time-stamped, and they have the views built in, so you can see when and where they viewed them. Within Samply, you can even specify payment information. It has Stripe payments built in. So if you'd like to work with the same program that audio engineers for Taylor Swift, Mac DeMarco, and like Doja Cat have, I would check out Samply. There's a bunch of different pricing plans, including a free one. Use that link down below, and thanks to Samply for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it.
It's well documented that Phoebe uses Gibson guitars and Waterloo guitars. I found this clip of her describing her vintage Gibson, actually.
It's really old, and it's really small, and there's only a couple of them, or not a couple, but there's like only a couple hundred of them in the world.
Well, I can tell you one thing, we won't be able to emulate that guitar. Because of the rarity of this instrument, we'll be using my roommate's Martin. That'll give us a pretty dark tone, especially because they have some pretty dead strings. Phoebe is also constantly doubling her vocal takes on the main vocal. That means underlaying at least one extra vocal layer in order to give a little bit more thickness and harmonic interest to her vocal. It's also very subtle. Unless you're paying attention to it, you don't really hear it in the record, but if you remove it from the record like this, you can hear it a little better.
I don't know when you got taller. See our reflection in the water.
I also scrubbed through the internet to try and figure out what mic was used on this record. She actually revealed the mic that she used in her home studio back during the pandemic, which I thought could maybe give me some leads, but just watch the clip.
kind of record myself like for real.
Dude, Phoebe, no, I can't. I don't know what that is. Giant opaque pop filter in the middle of it. All right, well, this is a dead end. And I gave up. Until my roommate had the fantastic idea of looking through all the archived story posts during the production of the record. And although a lot of it was just her waking up Harrison and Ethan while they slept on the couch, that was actually most of it. But I did find this frame. I will be basing my mic decision off of this very grainy photo. Because that, my friends, that looks like a U47, a $20,000 microphone. A mic usually used for lead vocals, and when you combine that with the fact that it looks like it has a pop filter on top of it, we'll assume this is the microphone used on Garden Song. Next. Suspects. The producers, Tony Berg and Ethan Gruska. So let's take a look back at that clip I showed at the beginning.
It sounds like everything is one thing except for her.
That's a point.
Is it running all through a speaker? It's muffled, it's fuzzy, it's old, it's distorted. Is the whole track going through one signal chain except for her?
There is a plugin we used very effectively that shall go unnamed so that you at home can't imitate this record.
You will not stop me.
Basically does what you're hearing.
But it's on
no, it's on the
everything.
guitar.
It's on the guitar.
On the guitar?
We've rolled off all the top end.
Yeah, it's just this
It's just a
muffy
pulse.
bass pulse. Yeah, it sounds like it's sidechained to the guitar track, so the guitar track is pumping slightly underneath it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jack, I love you. Making this whole video possible.
Is it two guitars?
Yeah.
Both rubbers? Rubber bridge?
One is, I don't think both of them.
I think there's a 12 string. I think there's a 12 string on it too.
Yeah.
In the chorus.
12 string on the chorus. So those are 5 or 6 points, I actually don't remember, you'll see in the edit, that we can absolutely use as the master plan, the Bible, for how to make this production. Thank you, Jack, for doing this and then also making Patreon. Okay, so let's talk about this mystery plugin. Essentially what we're looking for is a plugin that has some sort of harmonic degradation in a very digital sort of way. You can hear it on the guitars in the beginning if you pay attention. Anyways, 2 plugins started showing up in these comments. Codec by Lease, and Cassette by Waves Factory. So I bought both of them. Actually, Codec is free, and we will be trying these out. Final suspect, Harrison Whitford, guitarist extraordinaire. Seriously, he's an insane guitarist. So I didn't really find any videos or anything explaining his gear, but I did find this very helpful article by Strymon. It was an interview. I gathered a few things here. 1, Harrison loves small amps that break up very easily, meaning they distort at very low volumes. He often uses hollow bodies with flat, wound strings for fingerpicking patterns. There's fingerpicking all over the song. That's not a third point. He loves to contrast fuzzy, dirty tones with clean tones along different parts of the stereo image. Maybe take that clean guitar, put it on the right, which does happen in this song, and then maybe put dirty ones on the left or something like that. Okay, so let's recap. So from Phoebe, we learned to double all of our lead vocals, to use a darker, mellow guitar like a Martin or a Gibson, or an Epiphone if you don't want to spend $2,000 on an instrument. That's also not a third point. There is a strong chance that she's using a Neumann U47 for the lead vocals. From Ethan and Tony, we learned the guitars are sidechained to the kick, and that kick is designed to be very dark, like a pulse, like a heartbeat. There's one 12 string, there's one rubber bridge acoustic, and there's one regular acoustic. All the instruments are very dark and glued together. This allows the vocal to sit atop all of them and occupy most of the harmonic information. This is a very popular technique in modern production. And they're using a mystery plugin in order to accomplish this sort of glue effect. I think these plugins are either codec or cassette. From Harrison, we learned to use flat wound strings on a hollow body guitar, use an amp that breaks up very easily, and contrast dirty and clean tones along the stereo image. Let's get started. All right, well, it has been a month, I think it's been a month. This was really hard. So on the Radiohead video, which is kind of like the spiritual predecessor to this one, I saw everything that they did in that video. It was really just a matter of looking at the microphones, looking at the microphone position, and emulating that to the best of my ability, and then mixing it to kind of match based off that info. Not here. There is endless degrees of experimentation on this one. We're really plotting points here based off of the general direction that we learned in the first half of this video and, you know, iterating. You'll see. Let's start with the drums. We chose to record an actual kick just because it seemed like more fun, and it's always more fun to do it with friends. And on that note, shout out to AudioHaze, the best drum producer this side of the Brooklyn Bridge. So we recorded two different types of kicks. We recorded a wool beater and a regular kick beater. Both of those were then recorded with two different microphones, an OC818 as the kick out and a Sennheiser E902 for the kick in. We also padded it with a lot of fabric, and that'll give us a nice thick short thump, which is what I like. The goal with the wool beater was to get more of a softer, rounder tone, and perhaps we could sum those tones together in order to get a beefier pulse. Quite honestly, I ended up getting a ton of phase issues whenever I was trying to combine the wool and the kick beater, and I even got phase issues with the kick out and the kick in when I was combining them. So I ended up just using the regular kick in mic on the regular beater. Here, you can compare the sounds for yourself. That's all that happened with the kick. Pretty simple. Okay, guys, strap in for the guitars. This one is a show. Here was the plan. Record 4 takes on the Taylor and 4 takes on the Martin in the following configurations. So for both the Martin and the Taylor, 1 take with the rubber bridge using the Lauten Clarion microphone, 1 take with the rubber bridge using a new 20s retro microphone. It's this beautiful microphone that they make in Spain, and it kind of gives you the sound of the 20s in a more contemporary fashion. Tony, you would love it. Then I did the same exact microphones, but without the rubber bridge attachment, and I did those 4 takes for the Martin and the Taylor. Again, we're plotting points here. We're trying to figure out which of these tones worked and which of these tones do not. The next question was, how in the world are we going to get this rubber bridge sound? Because rubber bridges, if you don't know, they replace the actual bridge of your instrument with a rubber bridge. This is a permanent modification to your guitar, and also not something I was willing to do to my only acoustic guitar and my roommate's only acoustic guitar. So first I tried this thing. This is a clamp with foam that you snap over the strings, and it deadens the strings. Not great. It sounded like don't buy one. Next, I actually saw someone online mention that you can use a rubber tube that you can buy from a hardware store, and you can kind of shove it under the strings, and it can deaden the strings in that way. And that seemed to work pretty well. I actually tracked all of the rubber bridge parts using this method. But after listening back, I noticed that the high strings, particularly the B string and a little bit of the E string, they were quite buzzy. I also noticed that it gave a really peaky, kind of quacky upper mid-range. And this nasal quality really wasn't what I was looking for. So after mixing all that for like 2 days, I went back to the drawing board. Now, going back to AudioHaze, local drumming hero, he actually recommended me this thing right here. This thing called a Babolat Vibrakill. Babolat. This thing is awesome, and you should buy one. Ayo, Babolat, if you ever want to sponsor a video, hit me up. So it's a silicone mold, and it doesn't just sit on top of it, it actually envelops the strings using these little slots here. And this effectively recreates a rubber bridge while sitting on top of your guitar. But it's like 15 bucks. This is for a tennis racket. I didn't know that. Bro, I didn't even know this was for a tennis racket. I thought this was for a guitar. Well, Babolat, you should change your marketing, because you're gonna make a killing if you market these things towards guitarists. If you do it, I want a percentage of it. I'm serious. I am serious though. wondering why it had counterweights inside of it. That makes sense. After all of this experimentation, I finally settled on a rubber Taylor bridge on the left side of the stereo image, a rubber Taylor Martin on the right side, and that's to give us some tonal variation like Harrison had mentioned in the prior document. So those two things are on the left and right, and I actually put a Martin in the center with no rubber bridge to kind of glue that stereo image together. That is played by my friend Maddie. Shout out to Maddie. All of that for 3 guitar takes. And then finally, I just added an acoustic guitar in the chorus, playing an octave lead to try and emulate that 12-string tone. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room. After mixing this song for nearly a month, I've gotten pretty familiar with both cassette and codec and Garden Song. I don't know if I'm ever gonna listen to this song again. But let's talk about these 2 plugins. Cassette, it degrades audio in like the simulation of aging tape, destroying old analog tape. That's very different from the sort of digital destruction that I mentioned earlier in the video. So while it's almost certainly not the plugin used on this record, I found I placed it all over the track on the guitars and on the return tracks to try and pump in a little bit of that lo-fi vibe, and it was very helpful in this mix. Codec is much more likely to be the plugin, considering it is basically the exact same sort of algorithm doing this lo-fi digital granular degradation. But I didn't find that whatever algorithms are making the tone of codec to be particularly accurate. So I actually ended up using cassette more, and I actually only used it on 1 or 2 of the guitar takes. I found it. I found the plugin, and I have proof. What? Yes, the plugin is called Lossy. Lossy by Goodhertz. Bro, I already finished the mix. It's done. Well, redo it. Redo the mix. Are you serious right now? No, I'm not gonna redo it. That took so long, man. Look, go work on the mix, finish it up, redo it, and then I will present this part of the video. All right? Are you serious right now? I mean, okay, I guess. Cool. Sure. In a tape op interview that Ethan Gruska gave 4 years ago, Ethan mentions using the Lossy plugin on his personal project and also on the upcoming Phoebe record. By the way, I don't know if this was deleted from the interview or there's a larger version of the interview somewhere, but this is not on the site. I found a screenshot. Given that he mentioned that this is his favorite plugin, that it's used on the record, and it nearly exactly matches the description of the plugin that we're looking for, I'm 95% sure this is the plugin. Now let's just wait for the other version of me to finish mixing it. 2 days later. Look, I'm too worried that they're gonna copyright this video for that stupid joke about SpongeBob, so I just did it myself. I know it's not as good, but whatever. I don't want my revenue to be gone because of this stupid The mix is a lot more accurate now. So every instance of codec has been replaced with Lossy, and about half the instances of cassette have been replaced with Lossy now. In part 2, which I will make if there's any interest, so please like and share and subscribe, all the things that boost this in the algorithm. It's a really small channel at the time, so we really need that in order to support these kinds of videos. If this video gets enough steam, I will for sure do a mixing video breaking down all of this in a little bit more detail. So mystery solved, and Ethan, I'm sorry if this got you in trouble. Love your work. Okay, vocals. Vocals are always tricky when you're doing a Phoebe cover for the exact reason that we've been talking about through this entire video. Everything is one thing, and then there's Phoebe. She just genuinely carries like all the harmonic information. The sonic signature of her voice is very important. So that means if you're not Phoebe, it is incredibly hard to emulate. But Jess killed it. So shout out to Jess. You can check her out here if you'd like. We used a Lauten Clarion again because that is the microphone that I own that most closely relates to and sounds like a Neumann microphone, which we know Phoebe uses. One really crucial part of recording Phoebe is to use less chest, use a more heady voice, and do it like right up to the microphone. Sing quietly and gently. Because of the proximity of that microphone to your mouth, you're still gonna get a really huge full vocal take. So we actually recorded with too much chest the first time. I think there was not really a belt, but there was more power than was necessary. Phoebe was singing really quietly, so we redid that take in order to get a quieter, more breathy tone. Here is the comparison between those two takes.
And when I grow up, I'm gonna look up from my phone and see my life. And when I grow up, I'm gonna look up from my phone and see my life.
And the rest, obviously, is quite a large mixing game.
On that note, if you'd like to mix this yourself, you can download all the stems for free using our sponsor, Samply. Just click the link down there. And if you'd like to use Samply, remember, there is a free option.
We'll make a part 2, so again, please subscribe, like, share, all the things that help the video. I really appreciate it. Whew. Okay, so without further ado, let's hear the mix.
Someday I'm gonna live in your house up on the hill. And when your skinhead neighbor goes missing, I'll plant a garden in the yard. Then they're gluing roses on a flatbed. You should see it. I mean thousands. I grew up here till it all went up in flames, except the notches in the door frame. I don't know when you got taller, see your reflections in the water off a bridge at the Huntington. I hopped the fence when I was 17. Then I knew what I wanted. And when I grow up, I'm gonna look up from my phone and see my life. And it's gonna be just like my recurring dream. I'm at the movies, I don't remember what I'm seeing. The screen turns into a tidal wave. Then it's a dorm room, like a hedge maze. And when I find you, you touch my leg, and I insist, but I wake up before we do it. I don't know how, but I'm taller. It must be something in the water. Everything's growing in our garden. You don't have to know that it's haunted. The doctor put her hands over my liver. She told me my resentment's getting smaller. No, I'm not afraid of hard work. I get everything I want. I have everything I wanted.
All right, folks, thank you for sticking around. Thanks to Samply for sponsoring this video. Again, these videos are nothing without the support of you guys. So if you can share it, all those things, it would mean the world. I pour my soul into these, way more than I think is probably healthy. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you around in the next one.